Also, you were raising about the currency risk, etc. I think the return is good enough even if you hedge it. I mean, I'm not going to the condition why do you hedge it, so, but still, it will offer a good opportunity for some players. Thank you.
So what I noticed in our session, we started off by probably describing what the regulatory framework in the infrastructure space should look like and what would make it attractive to investors, both from within India and from without. And the terms which were mentioned, or the objectives which were mentioned, were the certainty of regulation, clarity, applicability, consistency, timelines, transparency, applicability mentioned again. And then we went on to finally say that we are better off without any regulation. So I think I'm not going to go to summarize much more than that. That's how the discussion went. So I somehow don't see that we are going to have a situation where we will have no regulation. We may have a little less as we go along, we hope, and not have increasing regulation. But for the moment, it's here to stay, and we hope it supports the development of infrastructure in this country. I'd like to thank my panelists, Harshad, and Hemant. Thank you so much. I hope this was an interesting afternoon. This is a difficult session to conduct, but I think we have tea waiting for us outside. So I thank you so much, all of you. It was a pleasure of hosting the panel.
Thank you, Saumitra. That was really an interesting session. May I request Nicola, who's director of
Thank you very much.
Nicola? I can't hear you. No, Sarah's got one already. He's going to.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we have a short tea break.
Welcome to this session on challenges in urban development, intelligent communities, the way forward. We have a very distinguished panel, starting with Mr. Saumitra Chaudhuri, who's a member of the Planning Commission, Government of India, and by far he's easily the most distinguished of the members of the Planning Commission. And prior to that, from January 2005, he's been a continuous member of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister. And before joining government, he was with ICRA, which is a full-service credit rating agency. He began his career with the Bureau of Industrial Cost and Pricing. Several achievements, but he's a very, very distinguished economist. He has he's been a student of economics at Jawaharlal Nehru University. And my senior, of course. And a very distinguished senior at that. And to my right, to his right is Mr. Agnihotri, who's been a retired member engineering of the Indian Railways. And he is presently with the Lee Associates as a very distinguished consultant. To my left is another ex-colleague of mine, Mr. Rajeev Talwar, who's now the Group Executive Director of DLF Limited. He's been a very, very distinguished civil servant, but now he's graduated to the private sector now. He's worked in the banking sector with the State Bank of India. He's held some very distinguished posts as a civil servant. He's presently, as I said, with this India's largest real estate company, DLF Limited. To his left is Mr. Saurabh, who's with the Intelligence Systems Specialist, IBI Group. This has about close to 6 years of diversified international experience in the design and implementation of intelligent systems. He's currently leading IBI's group communication system practice in India. He has an extensive experience in designing intelligent systems. Very vast experience. His work has also included providing strategic consulting to a broad range of clients, including developing business. And to his left is Mr. Sanjay Sapra, who's the director and CEO of Aquanomics Systems Limited. Mr. Sapra has very wide experience of 25 years in the field of water treatment. He's worked with very leading water companies, professional companies, and this is going to be India's biggest challenge in the coming years. So he has huge competency in the field of water, wastewater technology, and his true passion is in the field of water, wastewater, and water recycling. So ladies and gentlemen, we have this very, very distinguished panel. Just to put this into a perspective on, because the session is on urbanization and intelligent communities, just to tell you that this is truly an urban century, and India is going to see an additional 350 million people getting into the process of urbanization in the next 2 decades, by 2030. And by 2050, 700 million additional Indians will get into the urbanization process. And this is 2.5 times the present size of the United States of America. And actually, every minute in India, 30 people move from rural area to urban areas. And therefore, urbanization is, to my mind, the biggest challenge India is confronted with. And if India has to grow at rates of 8 to 9% per annum, then our manufacturing sector must grow at rates of 14 to 15% per annum, year after year after year, for the next 3 decades, to be able to provide jobs to the vast segment of young Indians. And India is going to pass through a window of demographic transition during this period. It will be a very young India. But one of the key drivers of this urbanization process, and let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that India has been a very reluctant urbanizer, and therefore that's a huge, in many ways, while it's been a slow urbanizer, it's got a huge advantage. And that advantage is in the fact that it can use technology to leapfrog. Because when Canada urbanized, when America urbanized, land, gas, and water were all cheaply available. These are all scarce commodities, very, very scarce commodities. And therefore, when these countries across America, across Europe, when urbanization took place, they created verticals. Verticals of power, verticals of water, verticals of public safety. But one of the big radical changes that have taken place in recent times is the emergence of digital technology. And digital technology enables us to cut across these sectors, create central command room, and manage smart grids, manage water, manage power, manage public safety, spread education, spread health from one central command room. And that's why companies like IBM are talking about smart cities. Cisco talks about smart and intelligent cities, and what Koreans are talking about as ubiquitous cities, because technology has become the big driver of urbanization. So to my mind, urbanization is India's biggest challenge, and technology will be the big leapfrogger for India. So with this, I stop and I turn to my very distinguished senior from my college, Mr. Saumitra, Chaudhuri, to take off.
Thank you, Amitabh. I was a bit surprised. Wow. I am able to generally speak on anything under the sun, but even then, it's a bit of a stretch to speak on urbanization. It's not normally something I mention. In the planning commission, we also have some portfolios. Urbanization is someone else's portfolio. So I trespass. I trespass yesterday spoke in the chemical industry. That's my portfolio either. But nevertheless, I think Amitabh put it well that we said we're reluctant to urbanize it. I think we urbanized by default. From 1947, after we gained independence, basically, the feeling was that urban centers can take care of themselves, and whatever developmental focus should be there should be on rural areas. And the second part of it might have some truth, but the first one didn't. And in consequence, we have, I think, 5,000 towns. The significant population, 5,000, not small number. We have another 5,000 large villages, population of 10,000. We have a lot of large habitations. And there were many smaller towns. I grew up in a small town which had all the facilities, most of the facilities the big cities also had. Didn't feel particularly distributed. I'm afraid that's not the situation today. 60 years after independence, many of the smaller towns that were eminently livable had decent schools and colleges, good hospitals, good recreation centers. People didn't feel left out of the urban process. Today, don't have. And what has happened is where, let's say, by the default process, the great big metros of Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Calcutta, great big metros became the default centers of growth. What happened in a fairly unplanned fashion. And people gravitated to that. And that became, in a sense, the external feature of urbanization. Does it make sense for people to move from job to job? People should move from the rural areas to urban areas for employment, from the farm sector to the non-farm sector. But should the only option be someone migrate 1,000 kilometers away to the nearest metropolis and not to the nearer town in 100 miles away, which is socially much less disruptive and makes more sense. I think that's one of the dimensions of urbanization that you need to move forward. If you go with the default mechanism, the NCT, the National Capital Territory of Delhi, Ghaziabad, Gurgaon, Faridabad, Panipat, Sonepat, etc., will have 60 million people living here in 15 years, policed by chief justice, not a very complete police departments. It's going to be a nightmare. Or we can sort of try to refocus on the smaller towns, which have sort of been left out of the picture, and which, with some amount of support, can attract attention. Now, economics does level out some of these things. In the IT sector, for example, we had the emergence of tier 2 cities. The tier 1 cities, the big metros, become very expensive. Real estate is very expensive. Not to set up an IT establishment, does it make more sense to do it in Jaipur or Gurgaon? Jaipur is cheap. Now, however, Jaipur is still functional, but not some other cities are not very functional. And I think we need to focus on them to make them part of the vibrant urban India, the urban century, 21st century, and not just be a matter of the 13 large metros and a few other large cities. We need to expand the base. Secondly, how about the large villages, which we need to urbanize? Kerala, for instance, which is Homkara, has a continuous urban continuum along there, but we don't know what it sounds as the village starts. But those villages are still villages. They don't have municipalities, they don't have property taxes, they don't have water collection mechanism. Kerala is just okay. It is that's incredible area. So, then our communications. So I think we need to look at urbanization in a different way to be focused on metros and broaden the emphasis on medium towns, which can actually have the space to grow, and where a little bit of investment could also make a huge amount of difference. The second part of it is, of course, as I said, the facilities, the drink, the water, the road, the transportation. How do people get to and from work? What will happen to our mass transit system? We don't know much of mass transit system. In 1996, 97, when we all, the Delhi metro was being conceived of, I'm due to believe the organization I worked with, Sridhar told me this in that time, in 97, that I was working then, of course, in planning, this outfit that opposed me tooth and nail and told me that this is too expensive, so we should pay it. But we've seen how success of one urban mass transit has been, how it has energized interest across the country. If people can go to work in some degree of comfort, that alters the quality of life in the city. The transit, water. Delhi government has signed up for 2 water recycling plants. Most of our water use is in the rural areas. 80% of water is used in agriculture, 20% in urban areas. But urban and industrial demand is growing. And if you don't recycle the water, we are still in trouble. You should start recycling as soon as possible. Delhi has begun the process. We hope this will spill over into other cities. You look at construction, facilities, this issue of distributed centers. I mean, you look at Delhi, for instance, Delhi and Gurgaon. A whole lot of people live in Delhi, travel to Gurgaon. People live in Dwarka, travel to Nehru Place. People live around Nehru Place, travel to Gurgaon. Essentially, roads are clogged up because people are moving at all directions. Can we look at, let's say, this has always happened in the big metro, but if we have smaller cities as the hub or center of urbanization, we may not have that. I stopped here. I think lots of stuff one can talk about it. I think we need to think in some ways afresh.
I think Mr. Chaudhuri has made some very relevant, very valid points, one of which I thought was very significant is that about creating cities with backbones, and therefore how do you bring in cities with drainage, sewage, solid waste, especially, you know, when urbanization happened in America, actually, many of the car companies then bought over the railway. It had a flourishing railway in America at that point of time, and the car companies bought over the railway companies and actually destroyed the railway companies. And therefore, many of these American cities are guzzlers of gas because American cities are made for cars and not for people. And to my mind, it's very important that today's cities will have to be compact, today's cities will have to be vertical, and today's cities will have to recycle water, but more important than that, they'll have to be on the backbone of public transportation systems. And public transportation will, they must evolve and grow on the back of good public transportation systems. That is really what will make it a sustainable city. But I think in all this, while urbanization takes place, the private sector will have to play a very critical, very significant, very major role. And that is what it has done in the past in India. And I will turn to my colleague, Rajeev Talwar, who's a very distinguished, has very distinguished expertise in this area. And how do you look at this? If we are going to get 700 million people into urbanization, as what C.K. Prahlad said, that actually India needs 500 new cities by the time it turns 75 in 2022. Otherwise, every existing city will be a slum. So what are the challenges, right?
Thanks to policies, most of the cities are slums. And that's the good part of it, no? Don't feel bad about it, because out of every challenge arises many opportunities. I think that's what India's really all about. That yes, 50% of Delhi or Mumbai lives in slums. And therefore there is so much of a business opportunity. We've got all kinds of intellectuals. Unfortunately, many of them hate the West. After what he said, land, gas, water were cheap. In Canada, I'm sure you don't even realize that water can be a commodity in demand anywhere in the world. You've got so much of water there. But in our country, yes, rivers become drains. There's a Ganga plan, there's a Yamuna plan, it's being financed from abroad, but they become drains because you treat them as drains of the last resort. Cities become slums because you don't allow vertical cities to go up. You don't allow buildings to go up. Everybody here thinks and talks of things like the environmental capacity, carrying capacity of a city. Does it have enough water? Does it have enough electricity? The truth is, these are all business opportunities. Whether it's the transportation systems that he's talking about, whether it's water, electricity, roads, transport, sewage and drainage systems, generation systems, all these are business opportunities, and therefore countries like yours which have made advances in each one of these spheres have a great future in India. Believe me, I have a distinguished colleague here who's a part of Lee Associates. I first got Mr. Lee Westwood into India 20 years ago as a single man who came here, established a one-man office, and then began getting some consultancy contracts, and today we are great. It's great to hear that there is a Lee Associates which is actually employing very talented Indians as a member in engineering from the railways. The talent pool in the government is really, really immense. It's just that priorities sometimes get debated so often in India that we tend to suffer in the implementation of policy. It's not that we don't make policies. Therefore, agriculture, internal security aside, which should be the top two priorities of this nation, the third one undoubtedly will be urbanization. Opportunities lie in cities, and we don't really mean only metros and super metros. As Mr. Chaudhuri very rightly said, there may be 5,000 towns. The 500 cities which are to come up in India, there are new ones which Amitabh, I don't know if you know about him, He's heading the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. It was important enough for the Finance Minister to mention a full page on this corridor and say that 2 cities are already coming up. They would undoubtedly be not only intelligent communities, they would be technology driven. One in Gujarat and I think another in Maharashtra. Those are coming up. We need many more cities, but the real challenge is how do we develop our towns into cities of a mean size, if not of large size. The idea is that they would get people from rural background, come for education, come for manufacturing, come for services. That's the way India has to grow. And I don't even know whether it's right to say a $2 trillion economy or at best a $3 to $3.5 trillion economy if we can take our parallel economy into consideration. I think Mr. Chaudhuri would be the best person to comment on that. But this is an economy which has to grow towards an $8 to $10 trillion economy if we are to satisfy that huge bulge of demographic challenge or asset which is coming through. 60% of our population or 65% is below the age of 35. Imagine the numbers. We're an internal driven economy. We have to find our solutions here. We have to find services here. We have to find supply lines over here. The big challenge before us is how do you change the mindset? You change the mindset of people to feel that rights in the air, which are non-existent till today, which is what we mean by vertical cities, are really not anybody's property. This is the only place that you're sitting in India. Right now where we are sitting, it's a part of the Lutyens bungalow zone. This is the only place mandated by the highest court in the land as a place where no migration is allowed. You can't change any structure over here. You cannot build anything new. I don't know what we are preserving. It's damn good to preserve history, it's damn good to preserve your cultural heritage. What are we preserving? There's nothing really. Our monuments, which were made during the Mughal and pre-Mughal times, the few of them which are left, this is an evolving country. This is a developing country. We are a sub 5,000 per capita income country. For whose sake are we trying to preserve? It's only when we feel that yes, the government requires something, then buildings are made here. The 3 highest buildings in this city are possibly all illegal, but they belong to the 3 civic authorities in Delhi. There's a 20-floor Vikas Tower, which is Vikas Minar, which is by the DDA. There's a 25-floor building, which is the headquarters of NDMC. And there's a 28-floor headquarters called the Civic Center of the Municipal Corporation of Delhi. Incidentally, Delhi is the 2nd largest municipality in the world after Tokyo. 1,543 square kilometers. But why can't others go like that? Why can't we not have 60-65 floor buildings? That's where technology will come in. Mixed development, where you can have retail, you can have offices, and you can have residences on top. Either you come straight down into a workplace and shop, or you are linked to a transportation system which can be the very, very good DMRC, which is the metro, which can be BRT corridors. You get, and you don't flush about. Actually, Dr. Chaudhuri said the right thing. I mean, Delhi has the flushing effect in the morning and the evening. People are traveling from one end of the city to another in search of work or in search of their homes. And believe me, it takes a long time to find out where your home is and where your work office is. So we actually have a great opportunity. We were trying to design a building in Bombay, 3 Empire State buildings as residential buildings. And the wind tunnel tests were carried out in Canada. So right from designing, whether it's MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, whether it is the lift systems, whether it is the wind factor, there are so many possibilities of doing business in India. It's time to come here, open offices, open businesses over here, and see part of the India story. The private sector here is of course willing, but the good news is that even government is changing its mindset. So really, really big opportunity, but you have to manage your labor costs. Very often, what we think of as lumberjacks who went from here, please get in technically qualified people and labor at a competitive cost into India. That's where the future is.
So thanks Rajeev for that. We have Mr. Agnihotri who's from the Associates. And I think there's plenty to learn from Canada in terms of designing, in terms of planning, in terms of innovation, in terms of transportation. What do you think India should really imbibe from a country like Canada?
Actually, Railways participation in this conference started only 7 days ago when Mr. Mukherjee came to our office and said that Railways contribution to urbanization has to be discussed. So, we put together the railway budget requirement during this financial year, and in the railway budget about 1 lakh crores has been earmarked for being used in PPP mode for developing railways, and all these modes actually which are there in a way or other contribute to urbanization and urban improvement. You know what these actually things are there. One is high-speed trains, other is development of stations, another is elevated corridor in Mumbai, and fourth is dedicated freight corridor. In all these four actually heads, Railway proposed to put 1 lakh crores in next 5 years, out of which 1 year is already gone. So, and in all these sectors, Canada has a lot of expertise, and since morning we have heard that in what kind of projects Canadian money can be brought and what kind of technologies Canadian actually people can offer us. So I will talk in some detail about all these 4 initiatives which we have already taken in India. This dedicated freight corridor is already on, and Canada has very big experience in heavy haul, and the Bombardiers are already there. They know what all has to be provided for in the heavy haul as far as the freight wagons are involved or whatever. Then technology-wise also they have a lot of experience, and there is a heavy haul association worldwide in which Canada is the vice president, and they have very good actually insight into that. Heavy haul presently is being financed partly by World Bank and partly by Japanese funding, but that cannot suffice for all the heavy haul which is needed, because as soon as you take a loan, you have to service that loan.
Mr. Agnihotri, I just at this point that Railway has been talking about private-public partnership for quite some time and just not been able to deliver because simply the railway officials are not able to understand the issue of risk allocation. And to my mind, there's no project which has been done by railways under private-public partnership. We've been talking about PPP in railways for the last 1.5 decades. So there's plenty to learn from how Canada has done availability-based payment. And several of its toll roads, several of its major projects has been done under a very good system called where they, over a long period of time, they are able to raise through availability-based payment with almost 90% debt coming in from lending institutions. But they monitor the delivery very strictly and very firmly. I think it's very important for railway. I think we can increase our GDP by 2 percentage points if we are able to comprehend that private sector can play a very major role in the railway sector in India.
No, you are very right. Actually, railways performance in PPP has been very bad. And one issue which we talked in some earlier session was regulation. Railway is an institution where same agency runs the system, same agency makes the rules, and same agency regulates. In this environment, a private person because if your competitor is the man who makes the rules, if your competitor is the regulator, how do you survive in his presence?
Okay. So we have two very bright young dynamic entrepreneurs, and Mr. Saurabh, Bhatia. We talked about technology a little bit, and I think to my mind, technology will be a very key driver of growth in urbanization. I think if India is to really make a quantum jump in urbanization, it is the use of smart technologies. How do we make our cities smarter? How do we bring in real-time governance? And how can we leapfrog into the process of urbanization?
So, just going one step back, I just want to mention about ICBC. We are a Canadian company, world's third largest architecture and engineering.
Really sorry, they had PowerPoint presentations, but I think you must have had so many PowerPoint presentations because PPT presentations are show killers to death. So I've told them to skip that and speak. Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
So we primarily operate in 4 broad areas. So we do master planning of land, we do architecture, design of facilities per se, we're into transportation, and we're into intelligent systems. And when we think about it, these are the 4 broad areas which are needed for development of cities or development of communities per se. What we want to say is we bring together these 4 areas of practice and preach this concept of intelligent communities or smart cities. As a buzzword, we talk smart, we talk intelligent. What I wanted to talk about is what's the difference between a smart city and an intelligent community, and why we at IBI feel that intelligent community is what we should really aim for, especially for a country like India. So the word smart and intelligent, and the word intelligent per se, right now, the way we understand it is it has to be technology driven, but at the same time, anything and everything we do must be having sustainability in the DNA, and at the end of the day, must contribute back to the economy in terms of the economical benefits. So, as an example, there's a big concept in India, say ITS, or Intelligent Transportation Systems, which I'm hoping a lot of us know. It's a pretty new concept. It's been happening in the western part of the globe forever. And now we want to do this in India. So there's a smart thing that we're doing ITS in India. But the intelligent factor comes, are we able to create jobs because of that ITS industry? Are we able to use technology to be able to give our people here the knowledge, the experience, and the exposure to these new technologies, and then cultivate back in form of a knowledge-based workforce? So I've actually worked in Canada for 5 years. I worked in 8 different countries across the globe. And the good part about my experience is that in Canada, we have a city like Toronto, where it's one of the most prominent cities of the globe. And our population there is still about 3 million or so. But Toronto is expecting about 50% increase in population within the next 20 years. For a size of a city like Toronto, which has been growing at a rate of 1%, 2%, that is a huge expected inflow. And most of it is immigration driven, because our Canadian per se population growth rate is very, very slow compared to the immigration rate. The good thing which Toronto has done is, they realize it. They want to encourage Toronto as a city to attract talent, and they realize that immigration brings all sorts of challenges. You can have immigration which is for low skill per se, or you could have immigration which is for high skill demand in terms of labor. So how do we make sure that when people are migrating to Toronto, there is going to be a giving back to our economy there in Toronto? So they've launched various programs on the ICT, or the Information and Communications Technology Fundamentals, that whoever is coming in Toronto, we're going to welcome them, but we know that they may be lower skilled, they may be higher skilled. How do we ensure that they're going to contribute back to the economy? So there's a program in Toronto right now which is specifically targeted for low-income families. As a low-income family, you're entitled for subsidized usage of broadband. Now, why is broadband important? So, broadband gives you the access to information in simple words. and I'm not getting into the negative bits of broadband which everyone knows, but strictly from a development perspective, if I am migrating to Canada and I have access to the knowledge, technology, to actually know about the country, the way it's been working, how that developed country has been set up, then it is a possibility for me to offer all these end applications. As you mentioned, e-governance. That is an end application. But if me, as a user, I have no really good understanding on how that e-application can be used in terms of broadband and what advantages I'm going to have, it's not going to contribute back to Toronto as an economy. So similarly, I think in India here, we have these buzzword, the smart, which has sustainability in the DNA. But I think the way I see smart cities is that smart cities can preach the concept of sustainability, and they look at technologies like traffic management, like a safety and surveillance system, like wastewater management, like smart grids, like whatever the bits and sectors we've discussed today. But the intelligence bit is how all this ties together over an ICT-based infrastructure.
Thanks. Thank you so much for that very in-depth elucidation. You said you worked in 8 different countries?
On budgets.
On budgets, okay. You look incredibly young to have. I know, what is the smart thing you're doing?
Working for IB.
Okay. So wonderful. We have with us Sanjay. To my mind, water will be the biggest challenge India will be confronted with. And this is going to be one single biggest challenge, which will be the defining feature of India's urbanization, to my mind. And what do we have to learn from across the world in terms of recycling of water, in terms of rainwater collection, in terms of dual piping, in terms of desalination? And why is it that we've not been able to bring in integrated water resource management into our cities?
Thank you, Amitabh. This is Sanjay Sapra. You asked me a question, of course, it has a very, very detailed and long answer. I was prepared, I had prepared a PowerPoint presentation, but I appreciated Amitabh said no more presentations. And for water, of course, all my life I have put in water treatment and water industry, so I can speak regarding water as much time as you want. It is unfortunate that we in India continue to speak about water, and we've been doing it for decades. And where are we today? It's really a question of introspection. This very city, 3 decades ago, we had water almost at 25 to 30 feet level. Today we have it at a level of 300 feet, and in many places it's gone dry. Across the country, we could possibly have water from municipal supply or from the borewell and drink. Today, possibly the contamination levels have gone to such an extent that we dare not even think of drinking that water without even going for a treatment process. Each house has a domestic RO. We all talk about Kant ROs and the so-called treatment units, which itself has its own problems. Having said that, it's very unfortunate that so far our policies did not have enough teeth in it. We always had the pollution control inspector. We had them 30 years ago also. Industries were polluting, and pollution treatment plant as an apology was being installed. Nothing was being done. End result is where we are sitting today. This morning we talked in terms of Ganga water plant, Yamuna water plant. Which Yamuna are we talking about? The one which is dead? The fact is, the Yamuna is dead today. The BOD COD roads are so high that it is not fit for
the industrial effluents or the sewage discharge?
It's a combination of both.
Mostly sewage discharge.
Both.
That's why you got a BODI.
Yeah.
Be clear on that.
Yeah. No, no.
The only fellows who actually do some effluent treatment are industries. What the
Industries
authorities don't do anything. They just discharge raw waste.
Industries has started. Now this was of course the downside to it. Having said that, I put in 2 decades in multinationals in water treatment. I've started my own company in water treatment, so I'm very optimistic. It is true that water has great opportunities. Take Canada for instance, abundant resource of water. Still they have the best water treatment technologies. And these are the countries which are water starved, where there is a huge requirement of their technologies, be it related to water conservation, be it related to efficient eco-friendly green technologies which saves water, be it related to sewage recycling, effluent treatment. Now, for instance, you were talking about sewage recycling. Sewage recycling, I would say STP Canada had one of the finest technologies by the name of Xenon, which of course is a part of G today. They have been there for almost 2 decades, but the reason why it was not successful in India initially was the cost. Cost was the barrier. They realized that in India, to make it successful, it is very, very important for them to look into the cost per cubic meter of effluent, the wastewater they treat. And by restricting the imports only to the critical import, the heart of the plant, which is the membrane, in this case, bioreactor, and now doing the assembly and the validation in India, it has become successful. Each and every commercial establishment, each and every mall, each and every unit, as a matter of fact, India has a huge potential for individual grey water recycling at homes also. Today, I would say that wastewater recycling, effluent recycling, efficient industrial and municipal water treatment, to save loss of water, we lose almost, it's a very controversial topic, but then it's an eye-opener that almost 40 to 45% of water is lost in distribution, which of course technologies are there to capture it, encourage new and efficient technologies, and proper planning. If you're talking in terms of 500 new cities, where is the water? Which is going to be very important, as you rightly said. So yes, water is a subject which we all seriously need to consider. In fact, I will request Amitabh that your iconic jingle should now come in the water side also.
No, but I really thought that there is an issue about, the issue of pricing of water is a very critical issue.
Correct.
I mean, if 82% of your water is going into agriculture,
Correct.
and you're not pricing water properly, and there are several examples across the world where productivity in agriculture has gone up by reduced supply of water, by optimum supply of water, simply because you don't price it. I mean, farmers are putting excessive degree of water into it, and actually very little water is available for industrial purpose in this country. And therefore, to my mind, the key challenge is a hard decision of pricing water.
I couldn't agree with you more. Efficient technologies for agriculture as well, which can reduce the consumption of water, which is very, very important. And there are irrigation processes now which can effectively reduce the consumption of water for agriculture. What you said is very true, Amitabh. And the second thing which we cannot forget here is the contamination also even up to the rural area. Second is the cost of water. We have a mindset that, okay, people might not be ready to pay for water or pay that much for water. One initiative which was taken by a few companies, including a few multinationals like Water Health, and now of course a lot of Indian companies, including Ion Exchange and others, who've gone into the rural water supply, where the rural water supply on a good basis, where even in rural areas a person is ready to pay 10 rupees for 200 liters or 200 liters of water. So that myth is gone. In rural area, people in India are ready to pay for good, safe drinking water. Why would they not do it? So yes, that concept has to be inculcated, awareness has to be brought in. People can't misuse this most, I would say, precious resource, and if they have to pay for it, they will be more respectful towards it.
Let me turn to the very distinguished member of the Planning Commission. So why is it that cities are going to be centers of innovation, growth, creativity, job employment? Why is it that over the years Planning Commission has laid so little stress on urbanization? And why is it that we've had only one urbanization scheme, JNURM? When is the next phase of JNURM coming in?
Phase is going to come in, but one of the problems we've got with urban centers is mostly in the third tier of government. You have the central government, you have the state government, and you have the urban local bodies, which are the municipalities and municipal corporations elected by their own people. And most of stuff is undertaken by municipalities. In the state governments, just like in the central governments, urban needs don't have the same kind of resonance. And there's a sense that urban centers can manage on their own. So, I mean, this is all history, let's put it like this. Now, how do we move forward? I think, if you have a kind of JNURM scheme, the problem with the JNURM scheme, this is my personal view, but I don't ascribe it very much, I don't know much, is that it is focused on larger cities. And because it pools in a lot of resources, the effect sometimes is that even smaller towns and cities actually don't get the money they were getting in the past, because the state government will put up 50% of the cash, so they take money away from this place and put it into this place. So JNURM, that is the reason why it will be restructured. But I think aside from JNURM, you need to be able to manage the firefighting on the larger metros, which need At the same time, also realize that if you expect urbanization to be carried to the backs of the larger metros, it's not going to be a feasible solution. So you have to develop second-tier cities, third-tier cities, provide them air links, for instance. Air links is one way to catalyze the city's commercial profile. We have actually more than 500 airports and airstrips in this country. Most of them are being a legacy of the Second World War and the Maharajas who wanted to land their private planes. They can be converted to day landing strips with some full-fledged airlines. And I hope we can do all that, because that's the only way to bring the small second-tier cities, which can have the capacity to grow very easily, into thriving commercial centers and give them a certain amount of life. Regarding water and water pricing, since this came up, at least pricing is something I'm supposed to know a bit more. Agriculture, you see, is not just a question of pricing. You just price water high, probably you won't get it. Everybody is remote and they get nothing out of it. We need to find new ways of using water. And one of the things is micro irrigation, which is a combination of sprinkler and drip. I remember in 2005 when I joined the Economic Advisory Council, the Prime Minister was very keen on doing something for water and irrigation of agriculture. And I suggested the idea of drip. I was ridiculed by some people. This poor country, how can we do drip in this country? Well, today, the cost of doing drip has fallen by about the factor of 3 or 4 times, because simply economies of scale have driven down costs. We are putting a lot of money aside for what we call macro irrigation, the combination of drip and sprinkler, and also new technologies which require less irrigation water, like SRI, the system rice intensification, which actually needs much less water and gives you much more yield. And it's catching on. Farmers are rational people like you and me. And if you give them a solution that works on the ground, they know water is scarce and they will follow it. It's not just price. Pricing is one instrument. You have to find the other instrument which is actually a feasible alternative which uses less water. Punjab, for the first time, Punjab is a great rice producing state, never grew rice once upon a time, grows rice, takes water out, 170 black blocks, so this water is very, very deep. Punjab is seriously thinking of moving away, of diversifying from rice into other crops, mostly maize, the summer crop. And wheat doesn't take much water. So there is a resonance, and we need to find solutions, aside from coercive apparatus. We are trying to create a kind of water, that's a long story, let's not get into all this. But essentially, as far as urban centers are concerned, we need to recycle water, and that is the only way to be able to find the additional water for the additional urban population.
I wanted you to respond to one other issue which I think is very critical for future urbanization in India, and that is monetization of land values. And to my mind, unless and until we are not able to monetize land and bring it back into the city, it will be very difficult to create good quality trunk infrastructure. Monetization of land values has not happened in India because political parties have taken away rising land values away, and therefore you need to bring in a lot of improvement into the land record management and depoliticize land in some ways. Any suggestions on this?
Land record, there's been a lot of initiatives. I think it started with Maharashtra and several other states have followed since. Land records have been digitized. We are doing cadastral mapping. We are bringing in satellite imagery. Things are moving, but when you talk about monetization of land value, talking about raw money. Raw money has its own dynamics, and let's not fool ourselves thinking that we can control the flow there.
Okay, so Rajeev, what are the innovative things DLF is doing? Can you shed some light on what are the new practices, new innovations, new technologies, new things on water, transportation, several things which DLF is doing?
Thanks for the opportunity, yes. Okay, DLF did begin, number one, we used to sell by the square yard, buy by the acre, and then we said let's go into apartments. And today, of course, we do gated communities. We generate within what we call the cyber city in Gurgaon, which is now known as the BPO capital of India. We generate as much as 150 megawatts of power by gas. We have a system over there which uses the waste heat not only for air conditioning, we also recycle water. We do buildings which are smart enough. They're green buildings. We do get a LEED rating for each one of our buildings. We do plan to have have something which is not well known, but which is mandatory, that you have to have on your rooftops and terraces of all these large buildings a solar power system. So we're going in for that. I mean, I know this, that the second round of funding for a company which has taken our contract is going on currently by Rothschild in Britain. So this is something which is making progress. We do provide security systems and all, we do provide parking. In fact, in that complex of buildings, you'll almost be surprised that we have a 60-foot road running underground. There are 3 basements, and these are roads running there which almost have a common linkage for parking systems. I mean, that's for removing. We're also building what we were told and led to believe was the first private sector metro. We started the system, got the clearances, it's now being taken over by IL&FS, and that was really to provide a transportation link to the Delhi metro system which was expanding to Gurgaon, and that was to keep away about 25 to 30,000 vehicles which travel every day to the BPO sector. There are about 300,000 people per shift who work, so that makes it about 900,000 people per day who work in that complex. So not only in the office complexes are all these going on, we do have our own fire service which we provide, which has got the tallest ladder system of 90 meters in India available today. We invest into it ourselves. Security, we do take the help of CISF coming in, but now more for the residential part. What we've really been able to do, which is innovative, is something called walk to work. In fact, till today, Gurgaon does not have a public transport system. And life east of the highway is so different because leisure, retail, entertainment, residential communities are all provided near your workplace. You can either go there by walking or you can at best use your personal vehicle if you require to use one. I think that's the quality of life index that we are taking up and seeing to it that most of our buildings, residential buildings, actually overlook greens. It not only gets us a premium, but it's also a much better quality of life to live in. Schools are given, we do give concessional land to schools. We see to it that schools are given total independence. We really have no opportunity to run schools or hotels, but we make it a point that it does not become a tradable commodity. It actually becomes, schools become places for education run by the finest institutions. That's a few of the steps we're taking.
Thanks. Saurabh, what about IBM? Are you working with municipalities? Do you work with planners? How do you integrate technology? Any interesting case studies of India?
Specific to India, when we started in 2006, 2007, talked about the transportation project, our client GMR Group, they were building one of the first so-called intelligent highways of the country. There have been like a couple of deployments before that, but this was slightly different in the way. So we were appointed as their systems manager, where intelligent transportation systems is a new word for India. And here's a Canadian company who has got global experience in this industry. How do you adapt that global experience to Indian conditions? Because I think that is where a lot of projects in India have challenges, that the best practices which we know internationally, but when it comes to ground reality, we really have to make our own best practices in India by adopting to the international practices. So our first project with GMR, 4 of their highways in India, with the systems manager, and as a company, we really like to put a lot of focus on design, design of systems. And when we entered India, we realized that India kind of takes design as a granted, and I know a lot of us will hate me after this, but that is the fact which I have realized, that design is not given a lot of importance until there is a failure. So we put a lot of stress on design, that we make sure that this whole system is a new concept, will be designed properly, and we kind of really pulled it through until the design stage. And our typical role as a consultant was then to do oversight or system deployment supervision. And here's the challenge. Number two, when this is a first-time deployment in India, how do you make sure the vendors who are from India are able to execute as per the Canadian standards? And our role then pretty much transforms from systems oversight to systems deployment to make sure our best practices of design are met in terms of deployment. And that project for us was like a big learning curve, I would say, because originally we were designers and then the oversight of the systems deployment, and then we ended up being a designer and then really making sure that the systems are working. Gave us a lot of learning curve, and then for any other projects, we've been just making sure that, that international best practice, yes, it's a very good thing, but whatever we do has to be tailored as per our Indian conditions without compromising that bare minimum quality of standards.
Sanjay, what are the lessons from different experiments on wastewater treatment, recycling that's going on in different parts of the country, particularly in municipalities?
Yeah. First of all, the lessons that you've learned is absolutely the advent of technologies have to take place which consume less water. Be it agriculture, be it municipality, be it industry. We water professionals, industry, I'm fortunate to be a part of Ion Exchange also, which has been spending a lot on R&D for new technologies, whether indigenously grown or possibly tying up with international technologies, working on reverse osmosis, better recoveries, effluent treatment plants, zero discharge plants, and all those. Having said that, moving forward with municipalities, we are working particularly with innovative technologies which can do away with chlorine. Now, chlorine is one of the biggest problems these days because of its byproducts, which are carcinogenic, and chlorine has been traditionally used in municipalities worldwide actually, and now there are products which are coming which are replacing chlorine and chlorine gas. We are working very seriously with a few municipalities. We're finding some success also, which could be very innovative moving forward. So, a lot of developments taking place in the water sector.
Mr. Agnihotri, any lessons in terms of design, planning, in terms of the nature of planning, and anything which you can enlighten our existing town planners with from lessons from Canada?
As I was telling earlier, the congestion in all the big metros which is being created now can be greatly reduced, not only by metros which are being constructed for travel within the town, but initiative has already been taken by Delhi to connect satellite towns to Delhi by high-speed trains. And there is an example from Canada and from Europe where actually people live at quite a distance from the place of work, but a high-speed train takes them there in a very short time. In Delhi, a travel time of 1 hour to office is very normal, and 1 hour you can reach 200 kilometers from Delhi. So that is the kind of speed which is available today, and Canada has a lot of experience in making high-speed trains. Similarly, the industry in India is suffering very badly due to slow speed of our goods trains. Average speed of a goods train is presently only about 24 kilometers an hour, which can be enhanced to about 60 to 70 kilometers per hour once the dedicated corridors are fully implemented. And dedicated freight corridor, as I told you, is a heavy haul technology in which Canada has a lot of experience, and that can be leveraged here to increase the input, and also the money is needed. So we have also been talking since morning about lot of money transfer and regulatory arrangements. So as you rightly pointed out earlier, the regulatory arrangement needs to be put in place in railways so that private investor is with confidence able to put his money and able to take it out as needed.
So ladies and gentlemen, we've had a very interesting discussion on various challenges of urbanization. We've looked at a vast range of areas, from transportation to intelligent technology, to smart growth, to water, monetization of land, a range of areas. I think urbanization, to my mind, is India's biggest challenge. Quite often we are still caught up in this philosophy that our villages will be economically viable, self-dependent. But irrespective of that, every time I go to my village, I find that everybody wants to move to an urban area. So urbanization will determine India's destiny, and that will be the key driver of India's growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Sir, please excuse me.
Yeah, actually, I think very welcome.
Okay then.
Same, great pleasure.
You have your card.
Yes, sir.